Let's address something that's become a new normal. Is your current or past job considered essential? Maybe you just got laid off or were furloughed because your position was not considered essential. Well, many of the programs of study at ITI provide jobs that are essential. Essential for our country, essential for business, and essential for you.
Joe Martin here, and if you're looking to provide for your future, no matter the outlook, give us a call or visit us online.
ITI Technical College, for a better life.
I'm Lee Feinswag, and this is Sports 225. And not just any Sports 225. This is the 25th year of the show. We started with Sports Monday, continued it into Sports 225, and now, a quarter century later, here we are. Sports 225 is sponsored by Breck. And now, me. Well, I'm excited for this week's Sports 225, and I'm excited for a lot of things. But first up will be my friend Herb Vincent, who is an associate commissioner at the Southeastern Conference, and he'll be talking to us from Birmingham. Of course, we're entering into phase one of the reopening here in Louisiana, and I'm a swimmer. And I got to tell you, I'm so excited that the YMCAs are going to open, and I can swim next week at the YMCA because my gills are drying up. But other than that, let's get right to the point. Herb is waiting. Herb, it's great to see you. Like I say every day, it's great to see anybody, but how are you?
That's right. Good. Good to see you. We're kind of in the same boat. We've been inside for a long time, and things starting to open up a little bit here. And hopefully we can start to get to a point where we can think about what the new normal is going to be. Yeah, and Lord knows whatever that might be. Herb, of course, is from Arkansas and came to LSU. He was here a long time. And I want to spend the first segment giving the Herb Vincent biography, because how did you end up at LSU? And I remember this story from the 80s when I met you, but I forget now. There was a relative who had gone here. There was some connection. Well, we had a lot of relatives in South Louisiana. And so during the summertime, we would spend our summers in Lafayette, New Orleans, New Iberia, different places that we had relatives and cousins. And so I had an affinity for South Louisiana. I was actually born in Shreveport before we moved to Little Rock. And so we spent a lot of time in Louisiana. And then it got to be my senior year in high school, and everybody was going to the University of Arkansas. I just kind of wanted to do something different. I got invited to go to spring testing, is what they called it, at LSU at the time. And I liked their journalism school. I liked their program. And so and I had a sister who lived and still lives in Baton Rouge. And so I had somebody do my laundry for me. So that played a big role in my decision. Yeah, I don't think I knew that part. That's good. Well, I got to make sure she knows. At least we'll have one viewer this week, and that's exciting. Because he'll watch too. You got into sports information as a student worker. Isn't that right? That's right. Yeah. In my first year, I was actually, when I looked at my journalism classes, there weren't a lot of writing opportunities. So I went to the student newspaper and asked if I could write for them. They said, we can't pay you, but you can write stuff. So I started hanging around the locker room and interviewing Charlie Mack and players. This was in 1979. And then a position opened up in the sports information office, and Paul Manasseh, who you knew very well, longtime SID, called to the Reveille and asked, hey, we've got an opening for a student worker. Do you know anybody on your staff who might want to be in sports information? And the sports editor said, well, we got this kid that's been hanging around here and kind of bugging us. Maybe. And so it was like October of my freshman year, I landed a job in sports information and really enjoyed it. Never knew what that was, never understood what the media relations profession was, and didn't aspire to be in it until I got into it and fell in love with it. Well, it's interesting too. Of course, Paul's, the press box is named after the late Paul Manasseh, who was just a wonderful man. And his son, Jimmy, who's an attorney here in Baton Rouge, does the in-press box play-by-play during the football games. So it's the stuff you hear Dan Bornay out in the stadium, but we hear Jimmy Manasseh inside. And but Herb, during that time, while you worked in that sports information office, there were a lot of guys who you guys have been friends a really long time, and people will know their names, like Scooter Hobbs at Lake Charles and Glenn Gilbo and others, right? Right. The Scooter came before me. I actually replaced Ron Higgins. Ron Higgins left, and that was the opening that was filled when I took over.
No, listen to this. I replaced Ron Higgins at the Advocate, so we have that in common. Yeah, there you go.
How easy it is to replace Ron Higgins. You and I are taking his place. So Glenn Gilbo was Scott Farrell, who's a longtime sports editor, now editor of the Shreveport Times. Jim Kleinpeter I work with. Just a whole slew of folks that, and Jimmy Manasseh was one of the student assistants at the time too. So he worked with us. So a lot of people we've stayed in touch with over the years, and it's fun to see those folks.
You graduated from LSU, and then that was I know there were times that you left, because I'll always remember you had an old USFL Los Angeles helmet, but did you go to work for LSU first after college?
No, Paul Manasseh, actually, he left LSU my senior year to go be first the PR director of the Memphis Showboats of the USFL. But before that season started, he became PR director of the New Orleans Breakers, because the Boston Breakers moved to New Orleans. So he hired me, and my first job out of college was as assistant PR director for the New Orleans Breakers. Recall the Breakers went to Portland after the first year, and I got a job as assistant PR director and later PR director of the LA Express for 1 year. So I lived in LA for, I tell people a year, but it was really like 7 months, because it was like one football season and the whole league went out of business. There's a guy named Donald Trump who got involved with the league, and it kind of went in a different direction and went out of business. And so those were my first 2 jobs out of college.
It's interesting. I remember that old LA Express helmet that you had in your office, but
so I'm looking at it every day. I got Steve Young's on the wall behind me. I got a couple of pictures of Wyatt Tittle and Billy Cannon as well, but those are my framed autographed pictures I like to look at. That's
incredible. Well, I think the first time I met Wyatt Tittle, you introduced me. But so you went from LA. That's when you came back to LSU, I believe.
Actually, I came back and worked at Southwestern Louisiana. It was Southwestern Louisiana at the time. Worked for Dan McDonald, who's a legendary SID in Louisiana, and I worked for them for a year. And then I went to the Southeastern Conference. So that's the first time I worked in the SEC, and I worked in the SEC for 2 years as assistant PR director before I came back to LSU.
See, a really good TV host would have looked all that up and had that in order and done it right. But, I thought I had most of it from memory. At least I knew that you had gone and left. All right. Hold that thought.
You're picking up half your program with this, so it's easy work for you.
That's true. Throw him a softball. Let him hit it. All right. We'll continue your career path when we get back, and eventually we'll get to the issues at hand. He's Herb Vincent, the Associate Commissioner at the SEC. I'm Lee Feinswag, and this is Sports 225.
Breck is here for you. Refresh your mind online and outdoors with their Refresh Your Mind webpage. Check out virtual versions of some of your favorite Breck activities and adventures. See which parks are open and safe to visit, as well as ideas for you and your family that will revive and refresh your mind in a positive and safe way. You'll also find videos and content on Breck's social media pages. Visit Breck today without leaving your home. Breck.org/refresh.
All right, back on Sports 225. I'm here in my home office in the coronavirus hanging out at home, shooting Sports 225 mode. Herb Vincent, the Associate Commissioner of the SEC, is in his house in Birmingham or nearby, a plush suburb. And we were talking about how Herb finally came back to LSU after graduating. So we had you at the SEC, and then you got a job at LSU.
Correct. I came back, and Joe Dean hired me. And first as assistant SID, and that summer he promoted me to sports information director. He took a chance on a guy 27 years old, probably didn't have any business having that job, but he took a chance on me. And so took over as SID and did that for 12 years before I left the first time to move to Birmingham. You're going to see a back and forth Birmingham trend here. I came to work for what was called the College Sports Southeast. And if you remember that at all, it was the exact...
No, tell you why I remember it, because you got me hired as a basketball analyst, and I made a few road trips and did a few basketball games, for which I'm always indebted.
Yeah, so the College Sports Southeast was the exact same concept as the SEC network is today. Exact same financial model, everything, except that it was privately owned, and the individual who owned it just didn't have the money to keep it going. So it went out of business after 2 years, And then Skip Bertman hired me back. So I went back to LSU in 2002, and stayed there till 2013 when I came back to the SEC. So it's been worn out the roads between Birmingham and Baton Rouge during my career.
Well, of course, your wife, Jamie, figured into some of that too as well, but that's a whole nother story for a different SEC connection. Right, exactly. Give her my best, of course. So what was interesting was at the end of your tenure, like the last couple of years at LSU, you were not only an assistant athletic director, but the sports information director, but you also assisted Joe Oliva on the university side. So it required you to really broaden your horizons and deal with the real world, so to speak.
Yeah. At one point, the chancellor came to me and said, first he called and he said, I want to come to your office. And I said, well, this can't be good. The chancellor needs to come to your office. I said, why don't you let me come to see you? He said, no, I want to come to see you. And so he came to see me and he said, hey, I like the way that you have branded the athletic department, the work that you do here. We'd like you to do it for the entire university and oversee university relations. And I said, well, I appreciate that. I said, my whole career has been in athletics. I love athletics. I really don't want to leave that. He said, no, I don't want you to do that. I want you to do both jobs. And so I ended up having both jobs in the athletic department and in university relations, and did that for 4 years before I left and came to the SEC. So that was really interesting. It was fascinating to learn, after so many years working on a college campus, really understand the inner workings of the academic side of the university. So I enjoyed that period of time.
Yeah, no, I bet it was really stimulating and eye-opening, and probably helped you a little bit for the next move when you went back to the SEC.
Very much so, because we work with university presidents, we work with faculty athletics representatives. We have a lot of academic engagement in the conference office, so I think it's been beneficial. Yeah.
Well, anyway, so you finally did leave here for good, ultimately, even though you were a guy who everybody always said the next time the athletic director's job opened up, it was going to be Herb. But you've got a great job in Birmingham. All right, so in the time we have left in this segment, because I'd like to, in the next segment, get to the issues at hand, which is what the hell's going to happen in sports and what you think. But define your job now.
I'm over communications for the Southeastern Conference, which means I oversee the area that is like a traditional media relations office. We also have a new social media director we just hired, so we have a social media operation, and then I oversee marketing and promotions, which, by the way, is headed up by Lauren Taylor, who's another LSU grad. We actually have 3 LSU grads in the SEC office: me, Lauren Taylor, and Corey Dalen, who used to work in football operations at LSU. So we have a good LSU representative in the conference office.
But Herb, everybody from the SEC office went to Alabama, and it's in Alabama, and everybody's in favor of Alabama. Oh gosh, just stop, right? That's something you have to deal with, isn't it?
I deal with it all the time. And if you can really see the cross section of how many people that we have in our office from different universities, and then even Birmingham itself is a real kind of gumbo mix of the Southeastern Conference. Right here on my street, I've got a neighbor across the street who's a Florida fan, some outlier Nebraska fan next door to them. That we have Auburn fan down the street, Alabama next door, Ole Miss right down the street. So we have kind of all represented. We got about 3 other LSU fans in the neighborhood. And so it's a real mix in Birmingham of Southeastern Conference fandom.
And Birmingham is a fascinating city as well, for those of you who don't know the history, but that's, again, another show for another day. He's Herb Vincent. I'm Lee Feinsbach. We're going to take this break. When we get back, let's talk about sports in the time of coronavirus. This is Sports 225.
Breck's crews are keeping spaces clean and safe for you in our parks during this difficult time. Governor Edwards deemed outdoor activities as essential in his stay-at-home order, but ordered the closure of playgrounds, other high-touch places, and banned groups of more than 10 people. So you can walk, hike, bike, or run in parks, conservation areas, and trails. But please stay 6 feet away from others and avoid the places blocked off by tape or closure signs. Let's work together to play it safe at Breck Parks.
Back on Sports 225, talking with Herb Vincent, the former LSU student, worker, sports information director, assistant athletic director, and now associate commissioner of the Southeastern Conference. He joins me from his home in Birmingham. I'm, of course, in Baton Rouge. And Herb, it's just great to see somebody again, figurative high fives or knuckle bumps or something. But let's talk about what's coming up and when. what is the talk that you can at least share with us about what might happen as far as specifically football?
Yeah, we've been real transparent about that, and the commissioner does a lot of interviews. He did one this week on the Paul Feinbaum show. He did an interview with the LA Times. He did CBS Sports last week. He's constantly putting him in front of a lot of people because people want to know what's happening. We've also heard from our coaches that student athletes, the players, want to hear some hope and some optimism. And so, our mantra has been that it's early, and it's not going to stay early forever, but it is only May, and we have time. And I know people want to project out and guess what's going to happen, but there's things we just don't know. And there's decisions that we're not going to make. There's going to be local ordinances, there's going to be state regulations and directives. And ultimately the virus is going to decide everything for us. And so we only have so much control. We can prepare for different scenarios, but right now we're focused on playing. The football season is scheduled. We want to be playing football the weekend of September 5th on Labor Day weekend. And that's our hope. Now, whether that's going to happen, I don't know. But there's some decisions we don't have to make right now. And we're not going to speculate. And when we have to make decisions, if we have to pivot, we'll pivot. But right now we're focused on playing the season as scheduled, starting Labor Day weekend. Well,
we joked that you do like 12 Zoom meetings a week, and, I mean a day, and which is probably not much of an exaggeration. But that part of what you guys are doing has to be to develop contingency plans. What if we play a conference only schedule? What if we start at such and such a date? What do we do with some fans? What if we do with no fans? What do we do with all fans? It's got to be part of it, right?
Well, the thing is that if you look at that right now and you try to think about all those things you just said, there's a million of those possibilities out there. 30 days from now, maybe there's 500,000. We don't have to deal with as many. So, patience is an important word here, is to wait until we have more information. We're going to make the best decisions available to us with the information available to us at the time. And so there's only so much you can think about those things. But on the other hand, there's so many things that are right in front of us that we have to deal with. We have student athletes who are at home, who are in positions that they're not used to being in. And so we have to stay in touch with them. We don't do that at the conference office. Everybody does it on the campus, but I'm trying to tell you what our members are doing, have to do. And there's things that we do in the conference office that we never knew we had to do. Like there's some things that have to happen to cancel a baseball tournament. You've got hotels to deal with. You've got other people that caterers. You've got local organizers that you've dealt with. You call it off, but there's things that have to happen to call that off. So when sports shut down, there's a lot of things to be done, and there are things still to be done. And so there's some things that are directly in front of us that we have to deal with before we start trying to make decisions about things that may not happen in the fall.
We'll
be prepared. We'll be prepared.
Oh, I have no doubt. When things did shut down, I can't remember, had the SEC tournament started, or it was right before then? You had actually begun the tournament.
Yeah, so actually we had those Wednesday night games, and it's just before the Wednesday night games that we announced we would not have fans in the stands for the remainder of the tournament after that Wednesday night, because the determination was made even literally as fans were standing outside the arena waiting for the doors to open 15 minutes later. So we weren't going to send those fans home. But we announced actually during the games that night, the beginning Thursday, the tournament would go on, but without fans in the stands. That was the night that an NBA player tested positive for the coronavirus, changed the world. We woke up the next morning and had some AD and presidents meetings and said, we probably just need to shut this down for now. If there's anything good about it, we have some regular meetings of our athletics directors during the basketball tournament. So we had everybody together. So we had all the schools there. We were able to make some decisions, and it kind of also set a tone that we were going to make decisions together as a conference moving forward. And so the ADs met daily for several weeks after that. Now we're down to kind of twice a week, but there's constant communication, and it all happened right there in the tournament. That's where it started for us.
As far as mind-blowing goes, on a scale of 1 to 10, that was like an 11 that week, wasn't it?
It really was. It was amazing how fast it was moving and how fast. Actually, earlier in the week, we had decided not to allow media to go into the locker room for games. That was our biggest problem of the week, was whether we should let media go into the locker room or not. By the end of the week, the entire sports world was shut down. So it shows you how fast things change and how the level of importance of decisions change over the course of the week.
Incredible. All right, I got a little bit of time left in the show. He's Herb Vincent, the Associate Commissioner of the SEC. I'm Lee Feinswag. This is Sports 225.
With schools out, children across our community are missing the nutritious meals they rely on each day. Along with the public school systems, BREC has partnered with 3 O'Clock Project to have thousands of meals delivered in our parks. The meals are free to anyone under 18. Please visit 3o'clockproject.org/COVID to see the schedule and find the location closest to you. During this uncertain time, BREC is here for you.
Coming down the home stretch of another Sports 225, we've been spending this entire show with Herb Vincent, the Associate Commissioner of the SEC, who is a former LSU Sports Information Director who graduated from LSU, and we go back to the mid-'80s when, man, that seems like a whole different life ago, Herb. So a lot of stuff in there we actually wouldn't tell people. Never mind. Anyway, we were talking about how the SEC had to cancel the basketball tournament, and then from there, everything got canceled, all the spring sports, and that must have been very sobering too, especially with baseball.
Yeah, it's really like dominoes falling as it was. We had suspended all activities until March 31st. If you think about that at the time, it seemed dramatic, but it was minuscule compared to what it ended up being. And so, but later that afternoon, after we had canceled our tournament, the NCAA announced it was canceling its tournament, and not only its tournament, but all other tournaments. And for folks in Baton Rouge and other places in the SEC that love college baseball, you immediately realize there's no Omaha. And so that changed everything. And from there later, we canceled the rest of the season, spring sports seasons for all the spring sports. And that's difficult to do. You know, when you're taking away championship opportunities from student athletes, when people are stopping long streaks of going to events and enjoying things. Next week would have been the SEC baseball tournament here in Hoover. And that's something we look forward to all the time. I looked at the weather today. It would have been beautiful weather next week for the tournament. And so those are the kind of things you just take for granted, and all of a sudden they're gone. And so we've had to deal with all that. But it's strange times, and I know everybody's going through it, but everybody experiences it a different way.
Now, it was just from a local end, of course, the LSU beach volleyball team was ranked #1 in the nation. The baseball team, had a chance to be really good. The softball team was good. Track and field, I think the men and the women were both ranked #1. And like you say about the weather, I was thinking like last weekend would have been the or 2 weekends ago would have been the NCAA Beach Championships, and the weather was just perfect in Gulf Shores, Alabama. Got to get you to that event some year. And of course, you guys didn't have the SEC meetings, which is no small thing. I mean, that's an annual event that is not only fun but really important because you bring everybody together.
Yeah, we bring everybody together. So there's real businesses done there. A lot of meetings are held. Coaches in football, men's, women's basketball, ADs, faculty athletic representatives, senior women administrators, presidents, chancellors all come together and really have meetings and make decisions and all that. But aside from that, everybody brings their families. And so it's a really family-oriented event, and it's something we look forward to. Big awards dinner at the end of the week. We had to cancel all that, and so it's just another missed opportunity, another year. We'll look to next year, and we kind of recreating that from a virtual standpoint with just the meetings, but you lose the in-person family element that we come to enjoy every year.
Well, I got to tell you, it's certainly been weird doing the TV show, sitting here in my office every week, but it's allowed me the opportunity to have guests that I couldn't normally have, and you being one of them. Herb and I have always talked about, if I could only have you here like on a Wednesday to go in studio, and it's just not feasible. And we never could shoot the show like on a Saturday afternoon before he came for a football game. So this has been fantastic, and I can't thank you enough.
Plug one thing on the SEC Network. Everybody's watching the Jordan series, the Michael Jordan series, Last Dance. Well, Skip Bertman will have his own version of the Michael Jordan series. It's going to be a 1-hour show on the SEC Network. I don't know when it airs, but I've seen the first draft of it, and it's awesome. And you'll enjoy it. It's the whole story of Skip Bertman and the Skip Bertman era, and LSU fans are really going to enjoy it. So I tell you, look out for that coming up soon.
Fantastic. Herb Vincent, the Associate Commissioner of the SEC, my longtime friend. I can't thank you enough. This has been fabulous.
Great seeing you. Stay safe.
Okay, and same to you and to everyone else out there. Thanks for watching Sports 225.
At carnival time by Baton Rouge Bay, that's the site of my story. At Spanish Town Mardi Gras, things can get blurry.